So we're going to get things started. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest media company in New York City. We publish over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx, Westchester, Long Island, and Philadelphia. And we're really pleased to have you here today. I'm going to turn things over now to Alex Mitchell, who is an AM New York Metro and Bronx Times reporter. Take it away, Alex.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about reopening small businesses, particularly in the Bronx, which, as many of you know, and it doesn't take much to when you just walk down the street to see, the Bronx is built on small businesses. And I'm joined by Bronx Chamber of Commerce President Lisa Sorin and Reginald Johnson, who is a representative for Councilman Mark Gjonaj, who chairs the City Council's Small Business Committee. Now, Lisa, Reggie, thank you for joining me this afternoon. The first thing that I would like to get into with both of you is talking about money or lack thereof that was given to the Bronx in the wake of COVID-19. Reggie, I know that this is something that Councilman Gjonaj has been adamant about in the City Council, and there's some legislation that's been passed this week to address that.
Unmuted. Okay, great. Actually, before I even get to the legislation that we introduced this week, I want to set up the problem. When businesses were forced to shut down, it obviously had an adverse impact on their ability to stay open. No income, no customers. And so the city decided it was going to act fast and provide grant and loan money for struggling small businesses, micro businesses in particular for us. And that was something that we were very happy to see. It was $49 million, a drop in the bucket of what really is needed. But still, we were happy to have that money go out to businesses. And then during our budget hearing with Small Business Services, it turns out that only 1% of the loan money went to businesses in the Bronx, and 66% of that money went to businesses in Manhattan. By the way, the other outer boroughs didn't fare much better either. But we felt that obviously that's a problem. The administration came back and said, look, it's because they didn't qualify. And the response to that is very obvious. If only 1% of the businesses in the Bronx qualify for your loan and grant program, that's a lifeline for you to stay open, then your qualifications are wrong. You set the qualifications in a way that excludes a whole borough of businesses, and we just felt that it wasn't fair. So earlier this week, Councilman Gjonaj, as chair of the Small Business Committee, introduced a Fair Share Borough Parity Act. And this act says a very simple thing. Whenever the administration has an emergency program, grant or loans or any other type of program, they must first look into see how many businesses would qualify for that program by borough. And the reason they have to do that is that would set the level, the parity level of who gets what money. So if you are, doing businesses that are, a nail salon, and it turns out that 35% of the businesses in the Bronx qualify for that, then we expect to have somewhere around 35% of that money going to those businesses in the Bronx. We think it's a fair thing to do. It is historic that the Bronx and other outer boroughs too, in many ways, are often left behind. And we think that in this age of where every New Yorker is just struggling to get by, especially small business owners and the employees that they hire, that it's important that we make sure we give everybody a lifeline. So we feel pretty good about the bill, the Fair Share Borough Parity Act. Obviously, it's in the Small Business Committee, which Councilman Gjonaj chairs. So I can give you a good sense that that bill is going to get heard in a hearing sometime soon. So that's what we're working on as far as parity. And we're hoping that, again, that it shouldn't matter if your barbershop is on 66th Street in Manhattan or if it's in the Bronx. You deserve the lifeline because you are investing in your employees and you're investing in New Yorkers.
And Lisa, would you like to weigh in on that?
I would. So thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I don't consider myself too much of an expert, but I am curious about all of this that's going on in support of our businesses. So Reggie speaks to the city loans and the continuity loan that the city offered. Now let's move on to the federal level. And at the federal level, those numbers are just as disappointing, if not startling. And we average, on the last count, almost 24,000 businesses in the Bronx, of which only 9,000, a little over 9,000 received the PPP CARES Act loan. You know, exactly. So to Reggie's point, I guess my big one is I feel like the Bronx is always trying to catch up. And so, and part of that is the qualifying. So, and this is a great dialogue, because I think that what we have found is businesses sometimes don't know if they qualify. And if they do qualify, they don't know how to access or properly get through the red tape to get to the monies. And if they don't qualify, what are we doing, or what do we need to do differently to get them to qualify? And so I think that that disparity has shown in this horrible pandemic that we are now in, and the struggle that our businesses is, what is it that we don't have that we need? The Bronx has always been shortchanged, and I can go on. We can have a whole webinar on my feelings on how the Bronx is left behind, but we're not going to do that. What we will talk about is the fact that there is a disparity, the fact that Councilman Gjonaj is putting this, it's a phenomenal first step. But I also think that with that comes the bigger conversation of what are we not providing our Bronx businesses to let them understand the right way to do business. We did a couple of interviews on the Spanish network, and what we found, we've received over 100 businesses come through our doors, not even understanding that they had the wrong accountant. And thanks to them having the wrong accountant, they lost out on monies, right? So the problem is bigger, and we need to figure out, there should be 100% of our businesses qualifying. Maybe it's a dream, but if they're not, what do we need to change? What institutionally we need to change, and individually, what type of education as a chamber, as our representatives, do we need to do to make sure that all businesses qualify and not left behind, especially if you're from our borough.
Now, Lisa, a few weeks ago, back when the city was just reopening, you came on my AM Rush podcast to talk about resources for businesses and places that they can go online for free, easy access to understand what they need, what they can apply for, what they qualify for everybody tuning in now. Talk a little bit about the resources that the Bronx Chamber has online and has provided to small businesses.
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying that one of the biggest, well, on the list of many problems, was the amount of information being inundated into our businesses. Every day people are receiving emails, seeing things on TV, asking questions, you know, talking to other people who think they know what they're talking about. And so the conversation started with the Yankees and Univision about putting one spot, a one-stop shop for businesses to be able to access information. And we do have the city agencies like SBS and other agencies that really have this information, but some people are wary about reaching out to city agencies for many reasons. So we developed the bronxmeansbusiness.org, bronxmeansbusiness.org. And what that landing page is an absolute long list, updated almost on a daily basis, of resources that businesses can access. And it's available in 6 languages. And we don't just tell you to go to the website, we tell you, look at the website, see what you think you may or may not be able to access, ask the questions, but then we're also providing you with individuals that you can call. Call us, we're available all the time, 3 to 5 people at all times here within the office to be able to walk them through. And we've had plenty of businesses that don't want to do it on the computer, don't have access to computers. One of the other issues that we have found over the course of this crisis has been a major digital divide in our borough. And so what we have found is having a phone number and a person answer the phone and them having somewhere to go. You know, there was a point where people would just come in and out. Now we have to schedule appointments so that we're able to provide this service. So bronxmeansbusiness.org is your starting point, and we hope to be the finishing aspect of it to get you through to the end.
Now, as both of you know, the Bronx is a very bilingual borough, and there is a very large Spanish-speaking population. Lisa, I understand that the Chamber of Commerce is also doing a tremendous amount of outreach and online education to the Spanish-speaking business-owning community as to what can be done in the upcoming weeks, or even when they get off this webinar now. So do you want to talk to that?
Absolutely, and that's just one, right? Because we are the majority as a Puerto Rican. We are the majority, the Hispanic community. And we're also the ones that have that digital divide. And so there has to be a way for direct access to them. And that was a conversation that we had with our partners, which we now have with the third largest law firm in the country, Arnold & Porter, Univision as our media to the Hispanic community. And they like to have conversations. They like to, a lot of the very small, and I love how Councilman Gjonaj identifies, we have micro businesses in the Bronx, right? Micro businesses, when people say small business or the federal government says small business and they throw out a number like 500 and under, that's not who we are. The majority of our businesses are under 10, under 20, and the majority are immigrant population of various languages, Spanish being probably one of the more predominant. And so with Univision, what we have been able to do is Facebook Live, their afternoon channels, story time, and news anchors, and we have the morning shows, and they actually put my cell phone number on national TV. So that tells you how many phone calls I've been receiving. And we have been inundated with questions. We have been inundated in providing answers. And the honest truth is, to all who are listening, we don't have all the answers. That's not what the Chamber and our partners like Councilman Gjonaj or yourselves have. But if we don't, we try to figure it out. And out there within our borough, we have somebody who does have the answer. And I think that's the resource that Councilman Gjonaj's office, the Chamber, and our other partners have that we can definitely offer that makes sense.
As you mentioned, the Bronx is made of micro businesses, but not just that. There's some of the most delicious micro businesses in all of the city. Of course, I'm talking about the Bronx's food scene, which Lisa, you know, Reggie, you know too. Big Bronx foodie. I praise it. It's some of the best food that you can't get in Midtown, that you can't get in Brooklyn. It is truly something you can only find uptown. And I know in the instance of Arthur Avenue, I had wrote about a first look at a street closure on Arthur Avenue called Piazza di Belmont, which is where restaurants would literally take over the street for outdoor dining as New York approaches what will hopefully be reduced indoor seating capacity. But right now, restaurants are doing the most of what they can to stay open. And again, these are small family-owned businesses, using the example of Arthur Avenue, but that's happening throughout the borough. That's happening with Jamaican restaurants up north. It's happening with Puerto Rican food in the South Bronx. It's happening all over. Now, Reggie, can you speak to what requirements restaurants have? I know that it's kind of a rolling process and things are changing, but to date, what exactly are restaurants restricted to? What do they have the liberty to do? Talk about that.
Sure. Well, let me say this. Obviously, there's no indoor dining as of yet, and we don't know when that's going to change. There is limited capacity in outdoor dining with the open restaurants program, which, by the way, there's praise all around for this program. I think somewhere around 8,000 businesses applied that first week. It just showed you, one, not only the popularity of the program, but the need that people have to get their employees back to work so they can pay them and keep their businesses running. So And I don't want to be negative, but let me just say this. There was a concern about the open restaurants program when it started. From the beginning, we can all say that we didn't know that the city had to shut down, right? The pandemic happened and it came out of nowhere. But the second you shut the city down, everybody knew that we were going to have to open it back up. And so from the beginning, day one of closing, Councilman Gjonaj said, look, to the mayor, to the administration, and to the governor to some extent, we need to have a plan for opening up again. We can't wait until the last minute. We need to make sure that we do this in a way that reduces chaos. So when the open restaurant program opened, as great as it was, there was some confusion about it. There was confusion about whether or not the barrier had to be 17 inches thick or not, and whether or not it was not adequate. Did you need to have reflectors on the outside? And oh, by the way, we did it this way because that's what your plan told us, but you gave us a new plan that said you got to do it differently. And so you have these businesses that are saying, I just need a partner, right, in the city. And so we don't blame the administration because they put the program together in like a week and a half. But that's kind of the problem that we knew we were going to have to open up months ahead of time. We should have been talking about the parameters of open restaurants, the parameters of capacity, of what people can do and what they can't do before 2 weeks before restaurants are opening, or 3 days after they open to tell them you need to have new restrictions. So that's the slightly negative thing I'll say. So like I said, no indoor dining, obviously. Open restaurants, we'll see. We're pushing to make that somewhat permanent. It is a bit of give and take because, it takes away valuable space around the street, but we're thinking we can find a way to where, especially if you have community involvement, that they can help shape a plan around what's best for their community and what's best for their commercial corridors. I'm working with the New Bronx Chamber and Lisa, who knows the borough very well and what its business needs are. We should be engaging on that very micro boots on the ground level to make sure that we are providing restaurants the guidance and the partnership that they need to get through this struggle.
Now, Lisa, where would you like to see the open restaurants program expanded to? Are there any corridors that you can think of that where you just think, yes, that will work? It won't cause interference with traffic or major interference with traffic. I know anything is a tall order, especially in the Bronx. Let me get your thoughts on this.
I'm going to selfishly say across the Bronx, where you have anything more than 2 restaurants, should have the opportunity to have it open streets, because our restaurants are dying faster than we can say, and let me be also doomsday, Reggie. I'll join you on that one and say that not everything is perfect, right? We're expecting, based on very loose statistics, and we're hoping to be able to grab more of that, is that maybe 45% of our businesses will be lost during this crisis. And so what does that mean? That means that every business should be given some sort of opportunity to open at some level, right? So it's not just open streets. It really is about individual boots on the ground, and you're 100% correct. And that's what we're trying to do. But with that also, let me say this, we have prided ourselves over the course of the last 3, 4 months, 5 months about educating to the best of our ability. To Reggie's point, trying to educate from the beginning so that you weren't rushing, you weren't tripping over yourself in trying to get to the opening process. We opened, everybody's excited. What's happening now? And this I really have to stress is that people are excited, me included, right? Nail salons, restaurants, everything. And the congregation has begun. And we're hearing all these other states that are turning back and being cautioned, or now you have to go back to quarantining. And so what we're stressing is we understand the importance. We understand you have to make money. We get it. And that's why when you say, is there a corridor? No, that everybody with the opportunity to be able to come to the sidewalk and do their should be able to. But the responsibility also falls on the owners of these establishments, because we have businesses in the Bronx that are closing, that are losing their liquor licenses because in the ambitiousness and in the desperate opportunity to reopen their doors, they're forgetting that we're still in a crisis, right? And I can't stress that enough, because while we're celebrating and the weather's warm, actually too warm for my taste, we really have to figure out how to do that balance. And Reggie said it, right? There's this confused messaging, which was a confused messaging that we had when we had the closure and how to access information. Now the confusion is, if you're opening, how do you open? Then you have the open streets, which is working. And I'm thrilled to hear that Councilman Gjonaj is talking about, and the other representatives, about permanent outdoor dining, because it's phenomenal. But the other side of the coin, if responsibly the businesses cannot do it the right way, then the stories we will be hearing in our borough is, we gave them a shot, they blew it, shut down, right? What opportunity will they have to come back after that? And who's to say that they can? And there's areas such as, the 161st Street corridor, where we're doing our best to figure out how best to help them get their establishments outdoors, get people to go there, because they're suffering by no fault of their own or anybody else's, not being able to use the outdoors. So while we're building, I think it's more about where the needs are, where the city, like Councilman and the other council people, the state level, come up with some sort of plan that can open everybody, these businesses can open up safely. And, as a chamber, we want to be the business police and educate before the real authorities come in and shut them down. Because it breaks my heart that these people, of which I know a couple, has spent thousands of dollars to reopen, do the outside, beautify it, and then the state comes in and says, I'm sorry, give me your license and shut your doors.
Exactly.
So, yeah, Reggie, please.
No, Lisa is exactly right. And the importance, you cannot stress enough, the importance that we have to, as leaders, like Councilman Gjonaj and Lisa and everyone else, that we have a responsibility, and that is to be partners to people who are in desperate need of a lifeline. Look, Councilman Gjonaj had a very direct conversation with Commissioner Doors at SBS, the new commissioner. And look, no, God forbid it, but if something were, the numbers are doing great, and New York is great. But if we were to have a slide, the numbers were to take a turn. Again, God forbid that ever happens. But if it does, what is the plan to help businesses? They can't take a second punch. And so what have we had that conversation about? What do we do? We're just going to shut them down, or will we provide them some type of partnership and assistance to weather the second storm? Again, God forbid that it happens, but we have to plan for those type of things, because that's the responsibility, especially of government, especially of those who are trusted elected officials. They have to plan and be a good partner.
Agreed.
Now, going to the example of 161st Street, last October, AM New York Metro, we broke a story about Nike merchandising and how all of the shops on River Avenue that sell Yankees apparel were in jeopardy just because of that one instance. Now, obviously, when you look at River Avenue, when you look at 161st Street and the Yankee Stadium corridor of the South Bronx, it is a seasonal business. It's like going to Cape May, New Jersey or somewhere. It is, it might only be from April to always October, let's be honest, with the Yankees. But of course, this is unfathomable, no baseball season, or a baseball season without fans. So it is frightening. And again, going to the example of 161st Street, I'm hoping that there is a way to do outdoor viewing parties safely and responsibly for Yankees games, particularly in what will be hopefully an eventful postseason. They owe it to get back at Houston, although the Dodgers gave them a little bit of help with that over the week. Now, my next question is about customers. What can we do? How can we be good customers to businesses? As you said, we're looking at a doomsday scenario of 50% going under. that's frightening. That is unfathomable. Every 1 out of 2 shops you see on a street. Now, like I said, what can we do to be good patrons and help these businesses as best we can, even if it's in a compromised way?
So I'll jump in here for a second and say that as customers, we recognize the importance of face coverings, hand washing. The joke is it's something washing hands should have been taught by our parents, right? And we forgot it as we became adults. But I think that, what's that show? What would you do, right? If you see something, say something. I went to an establishment yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they were serving food. The person behind the counter had no mask. 2 or 3 people were waiting online, took off their mask, and they're having a great time. And I had to address it with the manager. And those are the type of things, right? Before it gets out of hand, responsibly, the tattletaling, that you really have to own it, because we want our borough to survive. And the only way we can do that is by speaking up, going to the manager and saying, look, I love coming here, but did you see what's going on outside? Do you think you can address it? A responsible owner will do the responsible thing, right? And so I think it falls on us responsibly to not cause scenes or cause problems, but have that dialogue, because we're looking to protect our backyards, and we want to assist our businesses, and we want to patronize. We don't want our residents having to go to Connecticut or New Jersey. We want them to stay right here. And the only way we can do that is if we work in a partnership. And to a point that you said previously about River Avenue, I have to say that, yes, we have to get creative. One of the things that we've been telling our businesses is, God forbid, to Reggie's point, that we would trip and fall again. We have to start teaching our businesses how to reinvent themselves, how to do business other than storefront, or, there was a wonderful example of a woman hair salon who, had a great clientele. They were shut down, and she began to sell the coloring for her customers online, right? So she's like, you're a customer of ours, we have your numbers here, and we'll show you how to do it, right? Very creative. And I think that places like 161st Street, places like River, should think about, and this is to Reggie's point and to Councilman Gjonaj, what do we need to do to assist those businesses logistically, right? Arthur Avenue has their streets closed down. Well, what can we do with that type of creativity for the businesses that sell Yankee stuff, for those corridors, those great bars that we all love to sit and watch? And did I say I drink? No, I just said I watch, right? Okay, cool. Don't want to put myself out there. But that's the type of things, right? It's creativity, it's responsibility, our responsibility, and sharing in a responsible manner with the owners. Because the last thing you want is our government coming down on our businesses. And to avoid that, we all have to play a role.
I would add to everything Lisa just said and say she's spot on. I think one of the other things that you can do as a customer is shop local, shop local. It's easy, and I fall into the trap, and Councilman Gjonaj speaks about it constantly. Go to the local shop and help them. They need it more than ever now. I love, Councilman Gjonaj loves business, and I understand his passion for it. But at this point, the store in Morris Park needs your dollar more than Amazon does. So shop local first. The second thing I would say on that same vein is, when you're working with restaurants, go directly to them. Right now, under Councilman Gjonaj's leadership, we passed a third-party food delivery platform reform, which was much needed. It's something that he's been working on now for about 1.5 years, where restaurants were paying 33, 37% commission on an order on things they were probably getting only 10% margins on. So he set out to say we had to do something different. And we have 6 bills that would, we think, reshape and give restaurants, locally owned restaurants, a lifeline to help them through this crisis. But then COVID happened. And so as the chair of small business, he jumped into action and said, you know what, I'm going to pull out these 2 other bills separate than the other 6, and that is a commission cap and a bill that will prohibit these companies such as Uber Eats and Grubhub from charging erroneous phone order charges for orders that just never happened. The fact that you need to have a law on something like that blows your mind, but evidently you do. so he moved and we got the law, we got it passed into law. The good thing about it is that those restaurants are not paying as little as 5%. So that's great. You can use the platform as you want to, but there's nothing wrong with calling the pizzeria directly and ordering your pie from them. Save them even at 5% commission if you can, to help them through this struggle. I would also say that Open Restaurants is by far an amazing program, and Councilman Gjonaj supports it fully. The thing is, though, that when you started Open Restaurants, it started the time clock on the COVID-related third-party food delivery reform bills. 90 days after you allow restaurants to have someone eat at their establishment, those bills start to sunset. We have 90 days. And so he has made it clear. We will pass, we will move forward into legislation, into law, permanent reform for third-party food delivery platforms, because right now is not the time to have a restaurant who's paying 5% today, next week to be back paying 37%. It will decimate restaurants all across our city, and especially in the Bronx, where we're talking about micro businesses that really depend on every dollar.
Now, Reggie, to your point, as someone who has experienced food reporting, I will say when you actually call and speak to someone, your order comes out more high quality. And I'm guilty of using a Grubhub, Seamless, Postmates, yada, yada, but you're paying for a premium and you not always get the best service because it's something automated. It may not be as clear as when you say light sauce, extra cheese on the pizza. You may have to type that in. It's always better, especially with small business. You're doing Domino's, just like, man, that's different. When you're talking about real New York pizza, particularly Bronx pizza, some of the best in the city, I might add, it is important to have that dialogue, and it encourages a connection with customers. It makes it more personal, and with food, the more personal, the better, the more high quality of the meal. Now let's switch over to something a little less tasteful, and that would be taxes. So, Reggie, I know that there is something that Councilman Gjonaj is doing now to help small businesses with due taxes and incomes. Now, talk a little bit on that, please.
Sure. Towards the beginning of the crisis, when New York had to shut down, New York paused, and restaurants were just not, they weren't even getting, outdoor seating. They were getting almost nothing when you think about it, except for the Grubhubs and the Ubers, where at that time we're charging them 33%. So businesses in general were closed, but they were still paying property taxes and they were still paying other sets of taxes. So working with his colleagues, I think 37 members signed on to a letter that said, look, delay, we're not saying cancel, but delay some of the payments of property taxes, a specific set, payroll taxes, property taxes, things like that it doesn't make sense for this business that is closed to be shelling out money, and these tax money is due. No one is saying to them, you know what, we're going to let you slide. We're having a conversation about whether or not rent gets paid, but the city is not having a conversation whether or not they're going to collect property taxes. That seems to be a foregone conclusion that they're going to do it no matter what. And so under Mark Gjonaj's leadership, the council stood up and said, no, we need to do something about this. It's not fair that we see these businesses are struggling and we're requiring them to pay out taxes for money they're not getting. In addition to that, I would say as a lifeline, he also was able to kind of lead 38 members of the city council to say we need to give more grant and loan COVID relief to businesses. As I mentioned earlier, the city gave $49 million, which is a drop in the bucket, quite frankly, insufficient. And he was able to lead, a supermajority of the council to say, why don't we give them a bit more money? That we shouldn't look at that $500 million as an expenditure. We should look at it as an investment, because every business that stays open is another employee who gets paid and can pay their rent. Every business that stays open is able to be able to pay their property taxes and to fund the programs that we all love in this city. The administration has said they're going to think about it. He has pressed them several times on this issue, to the point to where now I understand that it is now at least something they're talking about. And we're hoping that we can make some type of movement on this, because the councilman just firmly believes $49 million is just a laughable amount when you think about it. So from the taxes to providing direct aid, it has been his main goal in the last few weeks to make sure that we're able to improve the cash on hand status of businesses that are struggling, many of which haven't paid their rent for the last 2 or 3 months.
Now, Lisa, I understand at the federal level, there are some funding discrepancies, things that you are pushing for in the interest of education and continuing with those online resources. Talk about what you're hoping to get in the upcoming weeks.
I think that one is, it's the whole better education. So let's start there. Right now, this laundry list of items of what businesses need to do to either apply, to get their loans forgiven, to, and to Reggie's point, the need for grants. Right, so there is a Bronx community relief effort that you can get up to $25,000 grant at bronx.org. I believe it's bronx.org. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right one. Yes, the bronx.org. That if businesses are interested, they can contact us. We will help put the application together, because you're right. We desperately need grants. People are tired of all the loans. But at the end of the day, there's also foundations that are giving out monies. If you go onto this site, there's a list small business that actually next Tuesday is the deadline, that you can get up to $30,000 or $40,000 that you don't have to pay back. You have the Humanities New York also has a grant program. So this will always be found on that website, the bronxmeansbusiness.org. But what we're hoping is the fact that people know that there's resources and that we're fighting. You have foundations which are coming into the Bronx. I don't have a lot of details yet, but that are looking to assist businesses hand in hand. And sometimes it's not even about the money. Sometimes it's about, do you need better marketing? Do you even know how to do your social media, right? Sometimes if your social media presence is good, believe it or not, you drive traffic to your business. And we have found that to be a big, big assistance in helping businesses just showcase themselves on social media. Another thing that I would love to see happen, to Reggie's point about shopping local, and to your point, is gift certificates are always a phenomenal thing. The businesses near Yankee Stadium, I upgrade my Yankee attire every year. T-shirts, hats, go in, buy a gift certificate. You're still supporting the team, but you're also supporting the business in that area, right? So, but resources are there. One other thing, the administration, Reggie can probably talk better to this, not to put you on the spot, but the focus of supporting minority-owned businesses, certified minority-owned businesses, and the need to really focus on that. The Bronx presently has about 648 businesses that are certified. If we put it into context of 24,000, which if the Bronx has the largest population of immigrant businesses, we should have quadruple that number of businesses certified. That is another arm or assistance that's not just financial. It's something that opens up opportunities for you not to only do business locally, but to do business across the city of New York. So those are things to think about as ways of assistance. It's, you know, what I tell people, and I know that it's not always about money, although it is, as we're rent and taxes and all that are being paid. But if you're looking to keep your business surviving, there's other options and opportunities that now, while business is either slow or you're coming up, to really get creative and start putting all that into work. Start putting it to work, just as Reggie said. Pre-planning is always the way to go. And this is coming from a procrastinator.
A procrastinator that gets stuff done.
Thank you.
I have to add.
Well, Lisa, to your point about the creativity of businesses and buying gift cards for shops, I know this is something I had covered at the very beginning of the shutdown, was dining bonds, which is where you invest in a gift certificate for a restaurant or somewhere, and say you put down $75, you would in turn, when you can go and enjoy a more relaxed, perhaps indoor meal given the current climate, both with everything going on, you would get $100 or something like that. You would pay X amount and you would get something back. I think that there's a way to do that. And as you're saying about social media with businesses, as we talked about the micro businesses of the Bronx, we're looking at places like restaurants, nail salons, hairdressers, all things that are visually and aesthetically pleasing, AKA do really great on Instagram and really can hook your attention. I know I get mesmerized when I look at Borgatti's Instagram and just see how the pasta is made and things, and that also gives it the local touch. You see that it's not just being brought in on a truck. It's people that put their livelihoods into their products, into their service. And maybe I'm speaking biased because I've worked in the Bronx. It's a place that I've fallen in love with. No one does it like they do uptown. That's at least my wholehearted opinion on it. And maybe the shops on River Avenue can start producing COVID-19 Yankees merchandise, something like that, where it's like, I was supposed to sit in section 237 today or something like that, whatever it is, and you order it online or you pick it up and you go somewhere like the Bronx Draft House, the Yankee Tavern, and have a drink while you wait for these shirts to be printed. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, pun intended, some ideas going on. Reggie, Lisa, thank you guys so much for joining this webinar today. I want to give you both an opportunity to talk about anything that we might not have touched on, or just to let our audience know what else is out there, what can be done, and what are some things that they can do after closing this browser today to get started on improving things.
Okay, ladies first. Okay, cool. You know, at the end of the day, I think that we can bombard our businesses and our listeners with a lot of to-dos. But I think the real basics are, because we're still in a crisis. And I think that's the part that we really need to remember. So the chamber, our elected officials, the commissioner of SBS, I have to give him a shout out. He has really, Commissioner Donnell has really prioritized our borough. And so shout outs to him, who has taken the time to walk our corridors, to ask the questions. But I think the takeaway from today is you have your representative from the elected officials, like our Councilman Gjonaj. You have the Bronx Chamber with its long, our partners. You know, we work with 6 bids in particular who partner with us and share out the information. So educate yourself, visit the website. You know, you can't help those who don't help themselves. You have to be responsible. You have to ask the questions. The resources are there. We're here, right? And that's what we tell people. Pick up the phone, 718-828-3900. We work up to 7 days a week. And when my staff hears me say that, they hate me. But our commitment is to making sure that our corridors stay active. And if there's problems, we're also here to help you connect to the right agency, the right person, the right elected official, because our elected officials are here to help. And believe it or not, you have a lot of small businesses who do not know who their representatives are, who do not know what a community board is, right? So, and we're here to help you. You know, no question is, what is it? No question is a stupid question. Anything that we can do collectively, because this is not a one person operation, this is teamwork every step of the way. Pick up the phone, ask the questions. If you can't figure out 311 or city agencies, call the chamber. If you don't know the chamber, you have a community board or a merchant association that can assist you. But we're here to, one, provide creativity, to get your questions answered, to help you through the process. If you want to become minority certified, now that all eyes are on the businesses that are certified, call us. It's a free service. And we don't just give you the stuff to do it yourself. We will sit with you on the phone. If it takes an hour, it takes an hour to help you get that certification. You know, we're going to be providing it soon, marketing, social media marketing, webinars, Zoom. And I know people are tired of Zoom and webinars because we just want to be in the same room, you know, but in the meantime, social media marketing, other types of marketing, reinventing your business. What are the things, to your point? And I love the idea that you're saying about 161st Street. I happen to think that's amazing. And I'm hoping that they're listening to this because that's exactly right. This is a time to be creative. If you don't know how to be creative, there's other people who do. You have interns. Colleges did not get their interns jobs this year because, you know, of what's going on. But there's tons of smart, young college students who are dying to, you know, get in there and do work. Reach out to them. They can help. Put their social media, put your websites that come up for free. There are ways to do it, and you have the resources. Just reach out. Do your part and reach out. But also, for those that are open, do it responsibly, because we're here to help you. But if you're doing the wrong thing, our hands are tied. And we're here. Just call us. Really, call us.
And just to underscore, Lisa couldn't be any more correct. I think one of the first things a business owner can do is to realize that they're not alone. There's a network of groups such as Lisa and a dynamic chamber that she heads. There's a very active and dynamic chair of the Small Business Committee that is looking to listen and to hear what your concerns are. There's a network of organizations and people that you can turn to, and you should take advantage of those resources. One of the first things that Councilman Gjonaj did when he first became chair of the Small Business Committee was to literally meet with every chamber and every bid in the city. And that was for one good reason. While he has a sense on what businesses need, there's no way to get that unless you speak directly to them, because they will give you issues and concerns and problems that they have that you just won't know unless you're there. So I really can't underscore what Lisa said enough, is realize that you have a network. A network of organizations and people that you should really try to leverage and reach out to. You can always call our office in the Bronx, Councilman Gjonaj's office. That number is 718-931. 0168. I always get that wrong. I don't know why, but let me just check it just to make sure again. But you should just really reach out to your resources. That's the first thing I think that people can do. Also, make sure that if you are a business that is owned by a woman or a minority, that you sign up for the MWBE programs at the state and city level. Now, look, it is unfortunate that you have to do one application at the state and one application at the city. We should do more to make this process easier for business to sign up, but you can do it. The resource is there. And I just can't say enough how we encourage people to reach out, call our office, and to ask for help. Then obviously call the chambers and your bids, your community boards. There's a network that's their whole responsibility is to help you through this crisis.
Well, Reggie, Lisa, I can't thank you both for coming on this Schneps Media webinar about small businesses reopening. To everybody that listened, attended, and I'm sure jotted down some notes about what we were talking about. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found this insightful. Oh, you got one more? Yep.
Because I want to make sure I get that number correct for people who want to reach out to Councilman Gjonaj's office. It's 718-931-1721. So again, if you have any issues, reach out to us. We're here to help.
Reggie, thank you so much for that insightful information. Lisa, same to you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll turn it over. Elizabeth, is there anything you want to add before we close out? You okay?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Schneps Media webinar.
Okay.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Reggie, good seeing you.
Everyone stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Absolutely. And don't forget, let's go Yankees.
Absolutely.
Good night, everyone. Good afternoon.
Night.
Take care.